So today we are going to be talking about a fashion trend that I think I have sort of coined. I don't have an exact name for it yet, but as we get into the video, I think what I've come up with will work. But if you have any ideas, please drop them down in the comments and we can sort of coin this fashion trend together. Hi, I'm Ellen if you're new here, and I make content all about fashion and London life, and today I'm making one of my trend videos. I have made quite a few trend videos in my time. I usually do like summer trends, spring trends, autumn trends, but now and again I sort of dapple in with like just a kind of one-off thing or trend or slice of life that I feel like is really impacting the way we look and dress, even the way we like present ourselves and our homes. And a trend I think is going to be so hot, or is kind of filtering through and becoming really hot, especially for autumn winter 2024, is, I guess I'm going to coin it, Coppola core is what I'm calling it at the moment. And basically this trend revolves around the life and work of Sophia Coppola with a little bit of Francis Ford Coppola sprinkled and dappled in, because I think he's a huge influence on her. So I don't think we could start this video without talking about who is Sophia Coppola. Sophia Coppola was born in New York in the 1970s. She is, of course, a Nepo baby. She is daughter of Francis Ford Coppola and Eleanor Coppola. Francis Ford, of course, being the iconic director of the movie The Godfather, and as well as like lots of other massive movies, but that's his like, I guess, like most renowned piece of work is The Godfather. So she kind of got her taste of fame by making appearances in 2 of the Godfather movies. She made her appearance in the first Godfather as a baby, and then the third Godfather as Mary Corleone, which garnered a lot of negative attention for her, as it felt like she hadn't gained the prestige for that role to get that role on her own, and had got it off the back of her father's merit. After all the negative press received by her appearance in The Godfather 3, Sophia Coppola decided to move behind the scenes and basically moved over to writing and cinematography, and her directorial debut came in 1999 with the film The Virgin Suicides, which was a beautiful piece of work featured around the Lisbon family sisters and their story. She then had her first major success with the movie Lost in Translation, where she was the 3rd woman ever to be nominated for Best Director and won Best Original Screenplay at the 2003 Oscars. Sophia Coppola's films normally focus on the idea of alienation, identity, and the general sort of female experience, usually with a twinge of like pain and sadness, the female experience itself, I guess. And they particularly focus on luxury or confining settings, so there's a lot of opulence, religious iconography featured throughout most of her films. And visually, her visuals are marked by a lot of pastel colours, reds and pinks. That colour combination is seen throughout all her movies. Her slow pacing and her very atmospheric cinematography, where the visuals and the silence tells the story as opposed to the actual scripting itself. So now we've got an overview of Sophia Coppola, I wanted to move on and talk about how I think her movies are going to be influencing the way we're dressing and the way we're dressing our homes and the aesthetic for autumn winter 24. The main movies I think I'll be focusing on in terms of when I'm flashing images up or just talking about Sophia Coppola in general are Marie Antoinette, The Virgin Suicide, Priscilla, and then I'll have a tinge of talking about like bits from The Godfather as well, which I know isn't one of her movies but definitely has influenced her taste and her style. So Marie Antoinette obviously features Kirsten Dunst as Marie Antoinette and takes us through the life of the famous monarch. This film is obviously shrouded in opulence. The outfits are most of the time like the main character as opposed to the characters themselves. They do a lot of the talking throughout this film, and it's definitely a massive influence on fashion. I also want to talk about Priscilla because I think that's again a really important fashion movie because of the way that they use clothes to depict the parts of Priscilla's life, the way she's falling into the shadow of Elvis. They also used references to Priscilla's true wedding dress, and Chanel actually made a couture piece for that movie, which is absolutely stunning. that is reference to the actual wedding dress Priscilla wore on her wedding day. The main themes throughout these movies that I feel like are gonna influence our fashion are the dreamlike, ethereal nature. I feel like we're seeing this a lot through, it's actually really strange, I feel like we're seeing it a lot through a lot of like London life daily vlog type content. I think her name is Abby Sinclair, I'm gonna find her name. Her name is Abby Sandler, who uses like the curly font to like introduce her her London vlogs. And I feel like that's very Sophia coded. The pinks and the pastels and the way the sort of ethereal, airy nature of her content. And I think that will spread definitely because she's very hot at the moment. I also feel like just the color pastels, the color palette of like the pastels in general. We obviously saw coquette as a real trend for spring, summer, and a lot of people getting really into the bows and the pastels, and I feel like this is very much taken and given an edge with Sophia's content. So where that content is really hyper girly, feminine, kind of, there's almost a perfectionism to it, which is taken away with Sophia Coppola's content. And although that color palette's being used, there's almost a sadness behind it, which I feel like really represents the move over into autumn winter as well, bringing this sort of very hyper feminine, but also like the leading on the female experience of like sadness and like despair, and like bringing that into the content. And I feel like a way we're seeing this as well is like morning and evening, these very perfect like morning and evening routine content. And I don't think they even realize how inspired they are, a lot of them, by Sophia Coppola, but they are very like pastel hues. They've almost got like this haze over them where like they don't feel real. And I think that probably says a lot of the content not being real. Like people's morning routines, like obviously some people have very aesthetic morning routines because they have a lot of aesthetic consumerist products, but the putting this sort of pastel haze over your whole life is very alien and very like I guess like movie style. It's not set in reality, it's set in a space that we like want to go and visit and like be part of, but like it's not set in reality. And I feel like that is very Coppola core coded. I actually, this leads really nicely onto the opulence you see within Marie Antoinette, mainly I think partly Priscilla too, but throughout the movies as well. I feel like modern day opulence is almost these like products that everybody's using, these beautiful pastel products, the Dior products, the Galan lip product that everybody's talking about at the moment, that you can get like designed with like your own case and then do a little like design on it. Like the opulence we're seeing sort of nowadays is sort of translating from the opulence we were seeing in Marie Antoinette, for example, and then translating into things that we can get our hands on nowadays. So I don't know, Summer Fridays, lipsticks, Clarins lip oils, Dior lip oils, all these sort of beauty products that are very aesthetic, and once they're all laid out, it looks opulent is sort of the best word to describe it. And I feel like even if it's not sort of set in these pastel tones and these like natural hues, it's very still like opulence is still a real major theme in a lot of content we're seeing nowadays. And of course that's because affluence sells. People want to buy into the lifestyle, so they'll buy these products to feel like they have a bit of the lifestyle, and that's why we're seeing, I guess, the rise in opulence. And I feel like people being like a lot less like, I know we saw like the de-influencing trend and stuff, but there's still so much content out there of people demonstrating wealth through the products they own, and it's giving let them eat cake basically. And then I think another massive trend, which we see a lot in The Godfather, is like religious iconography and like wedding styling. So there's a lot of like beautiful lace and images of like the Virgin Mary, and like I feel like Virgin Suicides is probably the best example of this in terms of Sophia Coppola's content, where they're wearing like the long lace nighties that all match, and there's that picture of them all on the bed, and there's like the cross in the background. Like it's stunning, but I think we're seeing like a lot more of, we're gonna see a lot more like religious iconography, people wearing like big crosses and stuff, especially coming into autumn winter. So I think that's like the main themes and aesthetic we're gonna see sort of peppered through for autumn winter. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think Sophia Coppola does have merit in terms of her influence over fashion. So she actually started her career interning for Chanel at the age of 15 in Paris. So she has always been heavily influenced by Chanel as a fashion house. I want to say that was under Karl Lagerfeld. I would imagine it would be anyway, that she would be interning. And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the dress for Priscilla was designed and manufactured by Chanel as well. It's absolutely stunning. I hopefully will be flashing some pictures. The wedding dress she wore when she married Elvis, very heavily based on the wedding dress that Priscilla actually wore when she married Elvis. So she does have sort of fashion merit in that she actually started her career in fashion. That was her main key interest before she moved into film. She's also been like cited as a massive muse for Marc Jacobs. Marc Jacobs, really low-key, did all of the styling and a lot of the wardrobe for Lost in Translation. So Marc Jacobs has sort of said that he is heavily influenced by Coppola and uses her as one of his muses when he's creating his work, which I find really interesting. So she's well intertwined with the fashion industry. I'm sure there's many more examples, but I'd like to move on to talking about who, in terms of fashion, has been influenced by her. And I think I would want to start with, I actually don't think they've been necessarily totally influenced by Sophia Coppola, for sure. I mean, they've been around a lot longer. But I do want to talk about Dolce & Gabbana's Autumn Winter 2024 show, which featured a lot of beautiful dark lace, and I think this really plays into sort of like the religious iconography, but also that hyper feminine kind of take, but like with this tinge of sadness, which I think this show is stunning. I'm not like a huge fan of obviously Dolce & Gabbana as a brand, and as the two of them, obviously they are problematic in their very own ways, but you can't deny that this collection is absolutely stunning. So I'm going to remove the art from the artist, and I feel like this black lace sort of very, like a lot of sort of hyper feminine, but with this twist, is going to be a massive trend for Autumn Winter 24, especially sort of as we move into party season. I think we're going to see so much black lace and a lot of like skin on show as well. So it's like really playing on that sort of almost religious elements, but also kind of this, like, we've obviously had this massive Euro summer thing, and I feel like this is the winter version of Euro summer to me. I don't know if anyone else sees that, but like I see it. That's where my head is with that. I also think you can't talk about who's been influenced by her without talking about Simone Rocha and Sandy Liang. These two are obviously, these two are Sophia Coppola core to the core to me. I've sort of saved some pictures. So Sandy Liang's autumn winter collection, it was very like 90s inspired anyway, so I guess you can say it's giving bling ring. Obviously another one of Sophia Coppola's iconic movies. I bloody love the bling ring, one of my favorite films. And she had two dresses in this collection, which I feel like are like chef's kiss, and I'm loving like pastels for autumn in general. I think that is really underrated. I think we're going to see so many more pastels for autumn this year than we've ever seen before. And this pink dress with the bows, it's Marie Antoinette, but you wore it in the bling ring. It's just everything Sophia Coppola combined. And then the blue version with the like asymmetric and the flower, again I feel like playing on the different shapes and styling, and hyper feminine but with a twist, and in that pastel hue. Stunning, absolutely beautiful, and obviously like very Sophia Coppola core. I think we can't not mention Simone Rocha. I hope I didn't say their names the wrong way around. I'll put some stars if I did. Her autumn winter collection, autumn winter 24 collection, was probably, hold me to this actually, one of my favorite collections I've ever seen. I absolutely love this. I've been talking about wanting to get her handbags for ages, one of her hammers for ages, and I think I'm just going to ask everyone for money for my birthday, and I'm going to get it. I want this pink bow one. So I did want it in the black, and then she released it in the pink. Obviously this must be mine. This must be mine. I absolutely love it. I've never seen a more me handbag, quite honestly. But this collection is obviously very heavily inspired by the romanticism of the like Marie Antoinette era. You've got a lot of like the sort of like cupping and the boning, and it's all done in these really like ethereal floaty chiffon fabrics in this beautiful neutral pastel color palette. Oh, I absolutely love it. And I feel like although it's like everything in it is leaning towards spring summer, the tones, the fabrics, it is so relevant towards winter, and I feel like we're going to see so much more of this, like big chiffon skirts with sparkles. It's just that like that sort of juxtaposition of like the structure and the boning, but mixed with these beautiful, very feminine, very light fabrics. It's just absolutely beautiful. And the fact they also showed it in this like dark room, so that the outfits are popping so much against this like darkness, which I feel like is also like quite Coppola coded. I would say Lost in Translation probably sits best with this like darkness, with these like dramatic pops, like that iconic scene where Scarlett Johansson's wearing the pink wig and there's this like dark element, but like she is the light. I think I'm onto something with that. I just got carried away, but yeah. Yeah, so I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. So the high fashion elements, the trends. So basically the key trends I think are going to be here are pastels for autumn, lots of like very hyper girly fabrics, the continuation of like romanticizing opulence, and like lace in like dark and light colors, but like lace used with like nudity. I think we were seeing that anyway. And then religious iconography. So I think that's the key things we are going to be seeing for autumn winter 24 in relation to this trend. I know that these videos are always super rambly, guys, so if you got here, thank you so much for bearing with me, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. And if you've got any sort of anything you want to add in the comments, let's have a chat about it. Let's like continue the talk on this trend, on these trends, and on this topic, because I think it's super fun and exciting. So I'd love to like hear from you guys. If you are new here and you haven't been here before, please remember to hit the subscribe button. I really want to make more of this type of content, so if you are enjoying it, then like just please let me know so that I can continue to make it, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye guys.